Thanks, Mark. This is quite nerve-wracking. I have seen Dad do this a lot through the years, but I always thought it wasn't that hard, but now being at the front, it's a bit harder than it looks. But yeah, so I've grown up in this church for the whole 20 years of my life. This has been my community, and it's the church and my faith has always had a real role in my life. But I think for a long time, it was just that. It just played a role in my life. It didn't play the main role. And as I went through high school, I don't think my faith was ever really my priority. I feel like I became distracted and was probably pursuing other things. And it's so easy to do that in our modern world. There's so many things that we can become distracted by. In fact, it's called these days, the term a lot, the attention economy. So much is designed to capture and keep our attention, from our social media to movies, TV shows. All of these things are designed to keep our attention. But it's not just our technology either. It's also the goals that lots of the time we end up pursuing in our lives are also just distractions. So lots of the time people spend their whole lives pursuing pleasure, power, money, popularity, and all these things actually are quite empty. And I think you can spend your whole life pursuing these things and you might find some happiness in it, but I feel like it's only ever temporary. The happiness will come, but it will leave just as quickly when you pursue these things. And there's a lack of a long-term peace and fulfillment. And you end up really just reaching one thing only to need to go and find the next kind of shot of gratification in your life. And so as I graduated high school and went through university, I began to consider what I was going to do with my life, what I was going to do professionally. And in this reflection, the big question was, well, what do I want from my life? And in this reflection, I think I started to realize more and more that I had been getting it wrong, that my priority hadn't been my faith and that I had been focusing on other things. And when I looked at the people who I'd grown up around and the other people in my life, I saw the peace and the fulfillment that came from their journey with God. And I realized that that's what I wanted for my future. And so when I look at what's ahead of me in my life, I think it can be pretty daunting looking into the future, because it can be pretty chaotic out there. It's a pretty messy and chaotic world in many ways. And specifically the field that I'm going into, politics and international relations, is quite messy and quite chaotic. And I mean, that's no secret. And so, but I think when I look into this future and I see this chaos, I always recall the story of Peter, and I recall how Jesus called Peter to step out of the boat and onto the sea. And as Dad has said in the past, the sea in ancient Near Eastern cosmology represented the forces of chaos in the world. And so symbolically, what Jesus was calling Peter to do was to step out of his comfort zone into the chaos. And I think he often calls us to do the same, but he reminds us, just as he reminded Peter, that if we keep our eyes on him and if we have faith, if we entrust ourselves to him in making that step, just as Peter walked on the sea, we walk on the chaos. And so today, really, what this testimony is about and what this decision is about for me is that going forward, I want to get my priorities right, because I have seen the peace and the fulfillment that comes from walking with him. And I have also seen on the flip side what it can come, the emptiness that can come from living a whole life of pursuing these empty vessels for gratification. And so today is really my declaration that moving forward in my life, I want to walk in the path that God has set out for me, and I want to do it right.